Minor scales. Minor scales. We're going to look at minor scales. Minor scales. I don't even know if you can see that on the whiteboard. It's my beautiful handwriting. Minor scales. So you can see you're not on the camera. Don't worry. Let's start by looking at a major scale. How do we define a major scale? It is, let's see, major scale. It is a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So, yeah, take notes. Everybody take notes. The good people watching this video, take notes. You're welcome to speak, by the way. You can say I interact with everybody on the videos. So, that's my secret to getting flat lines, sort of. So we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. All right, and so forth. Now, you can see the good Lord saw fit to not put a black key in between E and F. Somebody said why the other day. I said that's the realm of philosophy. We don't talk about why. We don't know why, we don't talk about why. This is not a philosophy class. It is what it is. There's no black key between E and F. We simply accept it. All right, so that's a half step between E and F. Between F and F sharp is a half step. This black key can be called an F sharp or a G flat. Between F sharp and G, that's a half step. Between G and G sharp, this black key can be called G sharp or A flat. That's a half step. Between A flat and A, half step. A and B flat, half step. B flat and B, half step. B and C, half step. There is no black key between B and C. It's a half step. Okay, this could be called an A sharp or a B flat. We usually call it a B flat. So between B and C and E and F, there's no half step. Now, if you were to just thread this through and pull it out so that we ended up having a keyboard that looks like this, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We could create a piano keyboard that looks like this. Why don't we? What's the reason we don't? Yeah, there's two reasons. One, our three middle fingers are too tall, so we actually line up really nicely with this keyboard. But another reason is because if we wanted to play a chord, a triad, something like C, E, G, we'd actually be playing dun dun dun. We'd actually be playing effectively what would feel like a fifth and a fourth rather than just thirds. So it would confuse the brain. It would make music theory very difficult. It would make it as difficult that it is as it is for every other instrument. So everybody has to have, no matter what instrument you play, whether it's saxophone, violin, you have to have some basic keyboard skills if you want to know music theory. So the keyboard does not look like this, but this layout right here is the violin fingerboard. It is the guitar fretboard. That's what this is. It's just a bunch of half steps. Da, 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 and so forth. Doo, doo, doo. That's the violin fretboard. It's just all black. That's the guitar fretboard or the violin fingerboard. So you'll see here, these are all half steps. Between C and C sharp is a half step. Between C sharp and D is a half step. Between D and E flat is a half step. Between E flat and E is a half step. Between E and F is a half step. But there's no black key on the piano. Now it really doesn't matter if you're in a different key, you know, the universal laws. Why is this F? Why is this A? Why is that B? Well, that was subjective. We had to pick a note and call it A, and so that's what we did. We took the bottom of the keyboard and we called it A, the first note on the keyboard. All right, because they liked playing in minor back in the old days. So they took the first key on the keyboard and called it A. People say, well, why didn't they call C A? Well, because they weren't playing in major back then. They were playing in minor. It was a very dark time, I guess. So between F and F sharp, they did take the first key on the keyboard and call it A. It was just minor. And so each of these is a half step, okay? And I just like to go through them all. So you see every other note is a whole step because one half step plus one half step equals one whole step. So here you can see these two notes, whole step, look like these two steps look like the two black keys, and these three steps look like the three black keys. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Now when we start on C, that's not a step. That's just a single note. When we go from C to D, that's a step. A step is an interval, which is from one note to the next. So someone got confused about that the other day. So let's look at this major scale. That's the definition of a major scale. C, there's no step, it's just a C. D, all white keys. E, F, G, A, B, and then C again. So we have scale degree 1. That little hat means scale degree 2, scale degree 3, scale degree 4, scale degree 5, scale degree 6, scale degree 7, and scale degree 8. But there is no scale degree 8. That's really scale degree 1. So between C and D is a whole step. Between D and E is a whole step because you have to go through a black key. Between E and F is a half step. They're two white keys. Here's E, here's F. Between F and G, you do go through a black key, so that's a whole step. Between G and A is a whole step. Between A and B is a whole step. And then B and C, which we already had, is a half step. You say, well, we already had C. Why are we counting it again? Well, because we're counting the interval going from B to C. All right. You just take a seat here. I'm recording, so don't bump the thing. You can just come out here. So that's our major scale. We generally think of the major scale as happy. That's some happy stuff. We can come up with all sorts of verbs to replace the word happy, like excited, jubilant, jocular. We'll just sum it all up with the word happy. So a major scale is whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Now, what makes a scale major or minor? The answer is the interval of the third from the root of the scale. You say, well, are there any exceptions? And the answer is no. There are no exceptions. From the first scale degree to the third scale degree, whether it's a chord or it's a scale, the third determines whether or not the scale or the chord is major or minor, period. There are 0 exceptions. So this is a major third, so it's a major scale. This is a minor third, so it's a minor scale. Doesn't matter what other notes there are. Minor. If the third is minor, it's minor. If you get a chord, there's a minor third from the root, so it's minor. If you get this chord, it's major because there's a major third from the root of the chord. Period. That's it. Doesn't matter. You could put your whole elbow on the keyboard and it's a major chord because there was a major third above the root. So let's look at minor. Oh, go ahead and play C major for me. Yeah, actually, that is C major. Play a C major scale. That's what I meant. Yes, very good. All right, let's look at minor. See if we can get another different. I like to use purple for minor. So we'll put we'll put these adjectives over here. Happy. Now, not always, right? So we could have something in major that kind of sounds a little sad. Yeah, it's a little sad, but overall, in general, it's happy. Unless you do that. So, let's go to minor. So if you're writing music, if you're a film composer and the director comes to you and says, we want something in a major scale, but we're doing a documentary of these underwater fish 1,000 feet down below the ocean, and it has to sound a little bit sad, but we want it in a major scale. That's probably what you would do. Although the director wouldn't say that. The director doesn't know how to describe music, so you have to figure out from the director what you want. what do you what the director wants. Okay, minor. Oh, I don't know if this is going to work. Let me see if I have another. Minor. Oh, major. Well, okay. We'll go minor. minor scale. All right, so the minor scale from using the same, if we use the same notes, we don't change any notes. We have all white keys on the piano. Then the minor scale would be A minor. Okay, go ahead and play A minor for me. Yeah, and so what we have is we share the same notes. That's called the relative minor. So let's go ahead and define that. You familiar with relative minor? Yeah. We'll define it anyway real quickly. Relative minor. Relative major and minor. So we'll say major and minor scales that share the same notes. Ooh, can't see that. Maybe pink. Yeah. Notes. Relative major and minor. So we have C major, all white keys on the piano. A minor. They all have the same white keys. If I just did a glissando, we wouldn't know if it was major or minor. But it could be A major or, I'm sorry, A minor or C major. Now, let's change this. Let's say we have C major, which is all white keys, and we change it to C minor. Well, I'm still in the key of C. I've just changed a couple of notes. So we can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in C major and then in C minor. Now C minor. I'm still in the key of C, so that's called the parallel major and minor. So I'm going to erase the word relative and write the word parallel. P-A-R-A-L-L-E-L. The parallel major and minor. And parallel means if you have two lines, I know you know what this means, and they go on forever, they would never cross. That's what parallel means. We're like 8-year-olds that are learning this stuff. So I'm going to erase the word notes. Major and minor scales that share the same what? Shout it out when you know it. Key. That's right. We did this yesterday. That share the same key. Key of C. Or share the same note name. So that's it. That's parallel major and minor. That says parallel. P-A-R-A-L-L-E-L. I kind of messed that up. So sometimes keys will start in C major, a piece will start in C major, and then it will move to A minor. That's called a transposition. When you're composing, and trans means to pass through, you're passing through the composition to another key. So you might have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We just transposed from C major to C minor. We could transpose from C major to A minor. That happens a lot. Okay, now I'm in A minor. How did I do that? Well, I used the dominant of A minor. So I changed this E chord, the C chord, to an E7 chord, which gets us to A minor. Anytime you want to get to a new key, just put the 5 of that key or the 5/7 of that key before it, and then boom, you're in that key. Well, you have to do it judiciously, but the composers will do that. They'll migrate either to the parallel minor or to the relative minor. Before Beethoven, composers usually transposed to the relative minor, and then Beethoven, and beyond, they would start transposing to the parallel. So that's what parallel minor and relative minor mean. Now there's different types of minor scales. So let's look at A minor. So from A to B is a whole step. So we have a whole step. And then from B to C, you can see there is a half step. Yeah, you can play. Go ahead, you can do whatever you want. It's your lesson. You can tell jokes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I've got 8, 9, 10-year-olds. They're interrupting me, throwing insults, all sorts of stuff. It doesn't make a difference. Yeah, and then so from C to D is a whole step. From D to E is a whole step. And then from E to F is a half step. So from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So from the 4th scale degree to the 5th scale degree, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Where are we? We're on E, from E to F. And then from F to G is a whole step. And from G to A is a whole step. We'll line these up a little more. And the minor stuff, we tend to say it sounds sad. Not always, not necessarily, but usually sad or melancholy or upsetting or tragic. That's generally the adjective that we associate with minor. Yeah, go ahead, try it. A minor, make some stuff up on A minor. All right, so if we go back to the strings, or let's go to the church. And so forth. So, or maybe to the Baroque period. And so forth. So, depending on the sound that we use, we can go to all the, just play whatever you want. So you can test it out. Yeah, and so the question is, where did our 3 black keys go? We got 1, we got 2, we got 2. Where's the 3 black keys? Well, it's so if we were to just continue, right, over here, the next one, if we were to bring this guy over here, woo, then we have 3 black keys in a row. So it cycles around. So there's our 3 black keys. Yeah, and so we're just shifting this scale down a minor third. That's all we're doing. That's why we share the same notes in the relative minor, because we're just shifting down and making the 6th scale degree of the major key the 1st scale degree of the minor key. 1, 2, 3, scale degree 4, scale degree 5, scale degree 6, scale degree 7, scale degree, that can't be right. What happened? Oh, C. I doubled up on C. Yeah. So if C is the 3rd scale degree over here, then it's still going to be the 3rd scale degree over here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scale degrees. Now this is actually called the natural minor scale because there's other minor scales. And it's natural because all we're doing is shifting over from the major scale. So I'm going to erase the word minor scale and I'm going to, the phrase, and I'm going to change it with natural minor scale. I keep choosing the wrong purple. Natural minor scale. There we go. You can adjust your notes. Natural minor scale. Now how do we get the natural minor scale? Well, we can do it one of two ways. We can shift over down a minor third from the major scale, or how do we get it from the parallel? How do we get the parallel natural minor scale from a major scale? So let's take a look at C major. Go ahead and play C major for me, please. Good. Play C minor for me. A flat. B flat. Yeah, and so what we did was we flat 3, we flat 6, and we flat 7. That's another way you can think of it. To get the parallel minor scale from the major scale, from any major scale, you would flat 3. Okay, so we're going to put a big old flat here. Flat 6 and flat 7. That's the definition of the minor scale. A major scale with flat 3, 6, and 7. And that's the flat symbol if you don't know. So a natural minor scale is, it can be defined as that, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, or we could just call it a major scale with flat 3, flat 6, flat 7. Now, let's say we don't flat 6 and 7. Remember at the beginning I said if you have a minor scale, it's because you have a minor third between the root, which is the first scale degree, and the third. So that's called the melodic minor scale. So let's go ahead and define M-E-L-O-D-I-C. Melodic minor scale. Okay, so what we have is flat 3, and that's it. Everything else is basically just a major scale. So if we do C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C, I'm going to erase the flats above 6 and 7, and we do the back half of the scale is major, but the front half is minor. But it's a minor scale. It is not a major scale because the third is minor. That's the rule, and there are no exceptions. So why would we do this? Well, some sopranos, you know, in the in Europe, in the golden age, it gets a very interesting, unique sound. It's almost like a transition from the Renaissance era to the classical era. you know, kind of through the late Renaissance and Baroque in Italy, and that kind of Orfeo Monteverdi sound with those recitatives and so forth. So that's where we would get that in Europe around that time. And what it does is it allows us to have a major third in our dominant 5 chord, right? Because if we flat 6 and 7, then we have a minor 5 chord, and it's not as strong. It's not as strong as of a magnetic pull from the 5 to 1. So what it does is when we're doing our music theory and we write lowercase 5 to lowercase 1, a 5-1 progression, it's not really cadential. That doesn't sound as if the piece is over. Whereas if we do a major 5, meaning we would naturalize, if we have a minor scale and then we cross that out and we make a natural, right, GBD, no, no, now we have a major 5, minor 1, and then it sounds, that's a full cadence right there, whereas this is just, you know, movement inside the phrase. That's the functioning of that particular scale, the melodic minor scale. And so composers would go in between the natural and melodic scale. They might start off a phrase in the natural minor, and then they'll go to the melodic minor. I did parallels there. So they'll do something like that. They'll start off in natural minor, and then they'll go to melodic minor. And you'll hear that. They'll whoosh, wipe those out and naturalize them. Now, what if we, do you have any questions? What if we take the minor scale, the natural minor scale, so we're going to flat 3, 6, and 7, right? And you can do that on the keyboard by just taking, in the key of C, E, A, and B, and flipping them down to black keys. And what if we just end here? What if we're in the natural minor scale, but we end with the dominant 5, the dominant 5, dominant 5, 2, 1. So we have something in the minor scale. We'll use this. Well, I was on B flat, but now I'm on B natural. That becomes the leading tone. The leading tone is always a half step below the root of the key we're in. So the flat 7 is not a leading tone. It does not lead to C by a half step. The leading tone is a half step. So to get the leading tone, we have to wipe out the flat, and we have to get to the natural. So let's go ahead and play that. That's the harmonic minor scale. Do you know this already? Is this all a big waste of time? Oh, it's harmonic. Harmonic minor scale. So we have flat 3, flat 6, but no flat 7. It's natural 7. So what that does is it basically takes us to a certain part of the world where they use this. So you have that augmented second. That's right, we did the augmented second a couple of years ago. From the A flat to the B. Right, so if we look at the augmented second from an A flat to a B, A flat to a B natural, right, That's an augmented second. There has to be some kind of second, because if you count A and B on your fingers, that's 2, right? So this is a minor second, A flat to B double flat. Or we could say G sharp to A if we spell it differently. But we'll say A flat to B double flat. That's a minor second. A flat to B flat is a major second. And then if we're going to augment the B flat by 1/2 step, then it's augment to me means to make bigger, or to increase by 1 step. So that would be an augmented second. And that's what defines our harmonic minor scale. Now, what if we spell this differently? What if we spell this A flat to C flat? Well, now it's the same notes, A flat to C flat, but A, B, C is 3 fingers, so that's a minor third. It's no longer an augmented second. You say, well, they're the same notes. Well, on the piano they are, but if you play this on the violin, you would actually be playing slightly different tones, slightly different pitches, believe it or not. So they're not the same tones. They're the same notes on the piano because the piano is a fixed pitch instrument. You would be playing them slightly different pitches, slightly higher or lower pitches, depending on the scale you're in. And so that is a minor third. Okay, and then if you, well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Same notes, different spelling. It's like the word through, right? He threw the ball through the window. They're homophones. T-H-R-E-W, T-H-R-O-U-G-H. He threw the ball through the window. That's called a homophone. Homo meaning same, phone meaning sound. Same sound, different spelling. Same thing, these are homophones. So if we play this in the context of an A flat minor scale, you hear it as a minor third. If we play this in the context of a harmonic minor scale, you hear it as a second, an augmented second. So your ear processes these things differently. So that's a harmonic scale. So if you're if the movie director says, hey, we're bringing Indiana Jones back, he's going to India, we need some music. Oh, he's going to the Middle East or something. So just create what we call a drone. It's an open fifth, a C and a G right here. Go ahead and then improvise on this harmonic scale above it. You're hired. All right. So we're going to the Middle East. Where's the Middle East? Here's England. Here's Europe. Here's the Middle East. Here's Africa. I should have drawn this, not as blue. Oh well. Here's India, which is like, yeah, here's China. Here's Russia, and then Denmark and all that kind of stuff. And then Scotland and Wales and blah, blah, blah. And then here's America. Here's Canada. Here's America. Here's those guys down there. And then blah, blah, blah. All right. So we're going to the Middle East right there. That's what we're going to use the harmonic minor scale. Then we're going to come back to England, right? 17th century England. We're going to use the melodic minor scale. And so forth, right, from the Renaissance to that area. So then we're going to use the melodic and the natural minor, and then maybe we bump it up to Beethoven time. You know, he was born in 1770, died in 1826 or 1827, one of those. I'm not even sure they're sure. And then we got the natural minor. right? And so, right, and so forth. And then we got the major scale. Where are we going to major? Africa. Everything in Africa is happy. Everything. Ah, la, 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 yeah, yeah, oh, 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 kumbaya. You know, blah, 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 right? Everything's just happy in Africa. That's all major. Jazz didn't come from Africa. It came from America. All right. Africa's happy. Under the sea, right? All that kind of stuff. So, where are we? Where else are we going? What other parts of the planet have we missed? China, Asia. Let's go to Asia. All right. So, how are we going to get to Asia? Well, let's do this. Let's say we take this major scale. Let's go back to the major scale right here. Let's take that tritone, the F and the B, the 4th scale degree and the 7th scale degree. Ooh, that's like, that's like the devil, right? That's what they call it. That's what they called it back there. Diabolus in musica. There's a name for it. Diabolus in musica. That is in the Harvard Dictionary of Music. Edited by Don Randall. Don Randall signed my Harvard Dictionary of Music. So, the devil in music is called the tritone. It's either an augmented 4th or a diminished 5th, depending on how you spell it. That's the 4th scale degree and the 7th scale degree of a major scale. Now, in Asia, they don't like conflict, right? Here in America, we buy something from the store, we take it back, we say, this doesn't work, this piece of electronics. What are you doing? What are you trying to sell me? Huh? And they say, what do you mean? It worked when you took it out of the store, and there's a big fight, argument. You know, you need to give this on warranty. No, there's no warranty for this. Why isn't there a warranty? Let me talk to the manager. Right? There's a big fight. They don't like to fight. Or at least they pretend not to like to fight over there in Asia. So you go over to Asia, and you're like, what's going on? You sold me this thing, and it doesn't work. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get you a new one. Steal his wallet, right? But everything's very like, oh, there's no argument. Here you go. You know, follow him out the door. That kind of thing. So they don't want to argue. So they don't want to argue in their music either. They don't like all this conflict in their music. So they just erased it. They said, let's erase the conflict from our music. Let's get rid of that. And now we end up with a scale that's incomplete. 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Well, what's that? Let's play 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Go ahead. Let's take the conflict out of the scale. Yeah. Well, it's very non-conflicting. There's no right. So it's very I don't know if I'd call it happy, but yeah, it's that's how they make their melodies. Now, that's just the black keys, right? We did that in the key of C. You can do it in any key, but you can transpose that to the black keys. And that only has 5 notes. It's a 5-note scale, and it's called pentatonic. And it is a major scale because it has a major third. And we define major or minor scales only on the third. So let's go ahead and write pentatonic. Penta meaning 5. If we have a 5-sided polygon, we call it a pentagon. P-E-N-T-A-T-O-N-I-C. That's all right. Yeah, pentatonic scale. Okay, so we just have it's a 5-note scale with scale degrees 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. We've eliminated the tritone. And so James Bond is going to Asia. We need some music. Let's get some music for that. So that's the deal. That's how we do that. And it makes for some very like amorphous music. You kind of don't know where you are. You don't know if there's a cadence because you don't have this B right here. You don't have the leading tone to get us that dominant tonic cadence. And so it almost feels like you don't know if the piece is done. But you may... this is one of the most famous melodies. Okay. But you can make melodies very easily, and that's where people go. It's almost like whatever black key you hit works. Now, incidentally, that's also how they make melodies in Scotland and Ireland. They use this pentatonic scale. Down by the Sally Gardens, my love and I did meet. All those beautiful Irish tones, they're also pentatonic. Right? There's no F and there's no B. Okay? But the difference, you say, well, but Irish tunes kind of sound a little bit different from Asia. So what's the difference? The difference, I figured it out, is that in Asia, the accompaniment, they're keeping out the F and the B. They're keeping out the fourth and the seventh degree in the accompaniment. So you're having an accompaniment that keeps these removed, 4 and 7. In Ireland, the accompaniment, the chords below, they will tend to put these notes